Hey, good morning. Pete, North Las Vegas. Finally got the lower to finish this Colt 727 project. It was out of stock for 4 or 5 days and seemed to take an extra day or two to get here for some reason. And we had to break it out of FFL jail. But anyway, it's here. So I thought we would do a flyover on the receiver and check out the finish on it. Okay, so before we do a flyover on the cosmetics and the appearance of the receiver, the main reason I picked the COTS version, the commercial off-the-shelf, is because, according to my research anyway, the U.S. Army Rangers used the Colt 727, or one of the variants, and also the Navy SEALs. And when the Army and the Navy SEALs bought these from Colt, they were configured and marked for full auto. So that's the first reason we chose the COTS over other M16A2 type receivers, to get the full auto marking. Another thing is when these were purchased through the COTS program, the Army Rangers and the Navy SEALs, once again, as far as I could tell, they did not come with the property of U.S. government marking. So as far as what's offered brand new on the market today, this is probably about as close as I'm going to get for the 727. All right, well, let's do a flyover and see what we think of the fit and finish. Well, finish for now. So first thing we notice on the receiver from H&R is that they leave all the flashing in place. And they don't even try to smooth it out as far as I can tell. You can see that it's pretty rough in there. And we come along the back, and that's like, oof. And on the, looks like they smoothed the front out a little bit. As far as the actual texture of the finish, it's pretty rough than what Colt used to do. Yeah, it's a pretty rough grit they're using to prep these before they anodize and color them. I looked this thing over. I couldn't find anything visually. No scratches, dents, or dings, other than the leftover flashing. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check pin fitment between the pivot pin and the rear takedown. We'll mate it up with the upper and see how much wobble we got, or if there's any looseness I don't like. I'll be using an Aero Precision kit because their pins do not come dimpled, and I'll get them out of the bag here in just a second. So the Aero Precision pins that I'm using, they don't come with the dimple machined on the end, so that's going to give us the correct look for a 727. These are machined flat. I'm also taking a close look at the detent slots, make sure there's no burrs or anything that's going to cause these pins to hang up when you're pushing them in and out of the receiver. And the pins are machined pretty well. We'll take a quick measurement, see where they're at on diameter. Okay, here's our pivot pin. That looks pretty good, almost 0.249. So here's our takedown pin. A little bit smaller, but still looking good. So it's better to use pin gauges for this area here, but I think that's a good number, and this is going to be a nice snug fit, I believe. So once we get these mated up with the upper receiver, I don't think we're going to have much wobble at all. So no springs and detents. We're just going to drop our pins in and see how everything fits. And okay, there is like little or no movement at all. So very nice. I'm happy with that. So as predicted with our measurements, we have a nice, snug, tight-fitting receiver match. So now we're going to put the detents in And I'm going to show you on camera this time how to get this in without any tools. A lot of people think you got to have a tool to get that in, and you really don't. You just got to have the right technique. Okay, I checked the hole for obstructions. Everything's good. Put a little grease on your spring. Get your detent lined up. Now, this part's a little tricky. It takes technique, but what we're going to do is we're going to shove this pin in, and when the edge of this bottom part of the pin gets towards the hole, we're going to slowly rock this thing up until it goes into place. I'm going to try to do this on camera, but you put your two fingers here, and then watch your pin fall in there. So, okay, so I have the detent started. Now I'm going to rock my pin in. And there we have it, and it rotated into the slot. So you don't need any fancy tools. You just got to kind of develop a technique. And maybe the first time you try it, you might launch a part. But after you do it a couple times successfully, you get the feel for it. And yeah, works out great. Let's see if it goes all the way in, which it does. Make sure it comes out. All right, they're kind of stiff at first. All right, I'll get it broke in here off camera. Okay, so the way I just showed you to install this pin, these detents are pretty hard material. It'll leave a little scratch. Just come back here with some cold blue or whatever, which I will do here in just a second, and we'll touch that up. I pushed the pin in and out about 5 or 6 times, and now it's still a little stiff, but it comes in and out. You see, I just did that with one hand, so. Okay, the rear pin, I'm going to do the 440 set screw modification, and that's something I do with all of my my lowers. So we'll show how that goes. Okay, before we get on to the rear pin, I touched it up with a little bit of cold blue like it never even happened. In your Aero Precision lower parts kit, they should give you a set screw to help you do this modification. Aero Precision lower receivers, generally, as far as I know, they already come threaded. This hole will already be threaded on Aero Precision. There may be other manufacturers that do it. At least Aero used to thread that, but because this is an H&R, it won't be threaded. So we're going to take this tap, this 440 tap, and thread the hole to accommodate that set screw. You can see the set screw is about maybe 4 or 5 threads long. I'm going to trim the spring, but I generally only trim the spring about half the length of the set screw. That's just something I do. Now you may want to trim your spring the entire length of the set screw, but I'll generally only knock off maybe 2, 3 coils, maybe half of that. So let me get the spring trimmed, and then we'll tap that hole and get our back takedown pin installed. Okay, I got about 2 coils off the spring, which should be plenty in my past experience. Like I was saying earlier, if you want to cut an extra coil off, 3 or 4, you want to go the whole distance of the set screw. But generally, 2 coils has worked out pretty good for me. All right, so now we're going to get the hole threaded. Use a little grease or some cutting fluid or oil. You don't want to do it dry. So once I get a couple of threads started, I'll kind of look at it, make sure it's straight up and down this way, and straight up and down this way. If you're off a little bit, it should self-center or center enough to where it's not going to be a problem. But I just cut enough threads to get that set screw to where it's going to go flush on the receiver. So it'll probably take me a couple of tries to figure out how far to tap in. I'm using a taper style tap, so I probably have to go a couple more threads than it looks like I need to go to get the set screw to fully seat in there. All right, well, I'll get this finished up off camera and we'll show the set screw and the pin and all that stuff in here. So after my first try, I got just enough threads to get it flush, but it just started to bottom out. So I'm going to cut one more thread in there. I'm going to take that set screw back out and put at least one more thread in, maybe two. Okay, so before I get everything put together, I'm going to touch up the bare metal with a little bit of aluminum black. I mean, you don't really have to. There'll be grease in there, so it's not going to be a corrosion issue, but I just like to touch it up anyway. Okay, so I have the excess grease wiped off. While you're tightening the set screw against the spring and your detent, you want to kind of feel for binding. If you feel like something's starting to bind up, then you may need to trim another coil or two off your spring. But like I said in the earlier clips, in my experience, about 2 coils, and I can get this flush with no binding, and the pin just goes in and out very nice, and there's plenty of tension holding it with just 2 coils taken off the spring. And this pin fits pretty good. There's like no wobble at all. So everything's snug, everything works. All right, moving on. I think we're going to put the trigger guard on next. Forgot to mention the Allen key for your set screw is 50 thousandths. So this one right here. This trigger guard I got from a local FFL. I think a couple of years ago I bought a couple of them. And this uses a split roll pin. And this is the one that comes with the Aero Precision kit. And this is a spiral pin. See if I can. I'll be using this one here because this pin floats inside the trigger guard, where this pin will not fit in the Aero Precision trigger guard, and this spiral pin also will not float inside this one. So this pin is supposed to float inside here, and then the only thing that captures your pin is the lower receiver ears. Now, if you take this pin and force it into that hole, what happens a lot of times is, because this trigger guard can't move freely around the pin, it'll turn the whole pin and chew up the holes on your lower receiver. So the pin will rotate into the receiver instead of the pin or the trigger guard rotating around the pin. So I hope I made that sense. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to take my drill and chuck this up on my drill and just run it through the trigger guard for a future build. But as of right now, this is the Aero Precision, and I won't be using it. So before you start tapping your pin in, you want to install this. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the AR platform, this is spring-loaded. So you're going to snap this into place here. And then you're going to use the trigger guard itself to support the ears from collapsing while you're tapping the pin in. And you want to make sure that you also have the ears supported on the other side. And if you don't do all this, there's a chance that you can break these tabs off. There is a workaround. If you break one of these tabs off, Daniel Defense sells a grip that doesn't use this. And it'll cover up any mistakes or whatever if you break that off, so you don't have to throw your receiver away. There's a workaround for it, but you really don't want to break those off. So let me get this snapped into place, and we'll get the pin driven in. So like I was saying in the last clip, you want this inside here before you start tapping your pin in. And then, like I said, that's going to keep the ears from collapsing on themselves. And then you want to make sure that you have the other side supported as you're driving the pin in. And if you do that, generally you'll stay out of trouble. Sometimes these pins aren't quite in spec. They can be a little bit on the large side, and you got to have a feel for how much force it takes to tap the pin into the receiver. And that just kind of comes with experience. But if you feel like it's taking too much force, you start tapping on that with your mallet or your hammer. You need to stop, take the pin back out and try to figure out what's going on. It's going in pretty nice, just about the right amount of force in my experience. And then what we'll do is, as we get the pin through the trigger guard, and we're probably going to feel a little bit of resistance on the other side of the ear, and then we're going to kind of stop and take a look in there and make sure everything's lined up before we finish tapping it all the way in. Okay, so this is what you want. You want the trigger guard to float around the pin. You don't want that trigger guard to rotate the pin and chew up the receiver. This is a newer style Colt takeoff. It's the more shiny black style. I do have the old original deep charcoal grips, but I'm going to save those for future builds. Getting the older style Colt pistol grips is getting really, really difficult. I may have the last two in the world. This is what came in the Aero Precision kit, and you can see the texture difference. That's the Colt screw on the left with the straight slot. Colt uses an external tooth washer, where everybody else aftermarket usually gives you an internal thread. And you can see that the bolt length, the Aero Precision uses a hex head, or a socket head, sorry, and that it's a little bit shorter. So I've already test fit this, but I'll show it on camera. This is a very loose fit on the receiver. This Colt takeoff is a much better fit, but there's something I need to do with this. So let me show you on the receiver how they fit. On this receiver, the Aero Precision it's kind of a looser fit. I mean, it's not bad. On another receiver, it might even fit better. But this Colt takeoff is a much tighter fit. I have to really kind of crank it on there to get it to seat. So this is a better fit. Test fit the grip screw and the threads, put a little grease on them, everything's fine. We have the selector installed. Get the detent in here, pointy end goes towards the selector. Just use the spring to kind of tap it down in there. All right, we're having a problem with the detent going down, so may have to clean out that hole a little bit. Just a little bit of anodize inside the hole. I took the selector back out, pushed the pin all the way up and down the hole and cleaned it out. Got it re-greased. We got our spring installed. Slide this on, screw this on. And I know for you guys that have built ARs, some of this might be elementary, but I try to gear these videos for people that may not have much experience. Okay, so when you tighten your screw in there, that's stainless going into softer aluminum sitting on top of plastic. So I mean, you want it snug, but you don't want to over tighten that thing. And I just went ahead and used the Colt screw. Just going to put the mag catch in, and then this video is going into serious overtime. And then we'll just end the video today after we get the mag catch release in. There's some other things to finish off this build that I wanted to spend a little time on, so we'll do that in another video. So for right now, we're just going to put the mag catch in. And there's quite a few videos already on YouTube on how to get this thing in and get your mag catch button started. So I'm going to do this off camera, and then that's going to be it for today. Okay, so that'll be it for today. Pete, North Las Vegas. Over and out.